All righty. Thank you guys so much again for being with us today. This really does mean a lot to me. So I will do super brief intros, and I will, if you don't mind, send out your bios. I think that'll be a little bit more efficient because I want to jump into the conversation. But for those who do not know me, I'm Vanetta Young. I am an investment readiness and fund formation advisor who works with emerging managers on their infrastructure and stories so that their fundraise can go further, faster, better is the ultimate goal there. So today I am joined by my client, Brendan Anderson of ScaleCo. It is a non-traditional private equity firm based in Cleveland, Ohio. And I am also joined by Donnie Bedney, a ScaleCo operating partner and president of PSP Metrics. So I'm going to just jump in, and also feel free to make this interactive. If you do have a question for Brendan or Donnie, feel free to just sort of shout it out. But I got some questions to get us started here. The first being, we're going to start with Brendan and ask how you got your start in the industry. How did you get your start?
Yeah, I started out as a commercial lender in Chicago, and not, kind of the normal track to business ownership or private equity, but I was, honestly just was blessed to have a group of customers that were just, kind of outward mindset people that liked, that were willing to, when I would kind of complain about being a banker, they would say, well, go do something about it. And they helped me go find a business to run. And it was, I think back to those days, and I just thought that's naively, this would have been the early 90s. And I just thought that's the way the world worked. You just, put some effort into things, and people, kind of pointed you to direction and helped you find businesses to buy. And I subsequently realized, Vanetta, that that's probably not the way the whole world works. But I was, I got lucky, honestly, just it was luck.
Works for me. Works for me. And I think, I think one of the interesting things about ScaleCo strategy that is unique from your sort of common garden variety private equity is that sort of, finding someone who is very interested and very capable and giving them the backing that they might not have gotten otherwise for whatever reason that might be. So kind of infusing some luck in someone else's life, if you will. So my first question for Donnie is, why?
Well, Vanetta, I'm sorry, because I guess but it's really opening up the idea that
because this is this is what you do. This is who you are.
That's true. But it's really opening up the possibility, right? I mean, I don't think when I was 28 years old or 27, 28 years old, I thought that was even a possibility. I didn't know that you could go buy a business. I didn't know that it was that was even something you could do or think about. And so, really, that's. I think that was the aha moment, is that somebody pointed me in that direction. So, Donnie, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Why entrepreneurship through acquisition? Why partner with someone like Brendan instead of starting a business from scratch yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just kind of building on what you and Brendan were just sharing. I mean, it started for me, I guess the desire to even run businesses started when I was about 16 or so. I read a book called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun, which was the autobiography of a gentleman by the name of Reginald Lewis, which I'm sure a bunch of folks have potentially read that book. I think the more people I've met who have desires to do those things have read his story. And so that was kind of my first exposure to the fact that you could actually acquire businesses. Granted, at that point, I was thinking of really large, multinational transactions and, all of those traditional things that we all kind of hear about, right? XYZ companies always, especially these days, every acquisition is like multiple billions of dollars, moving forward. And so I ended up getting exposed and introduced to a number of people just kind of a few years after that, just working in the summer in Cleveland at a country club and started meeting with some of those members. And, providentially, just kind of as I started, continuing to move down that path, Brendan and I connected. And so we've known each other somewhere between 15 and 20 years. Depends on how old he wants to say he is today or not.
It's 20.
yeah, hence the joke about age, because he always wants to mention that. But so we started talking, and he was one of the first people that I kind of met who was working in private equity. And then if you fast forward, really to right around 2017 or so, I just really determined in my mind that, like, this is something that I want to do and something that I'm ready for. And funny enough, I reached out to Brendan because I had a fellowship and I was based in Nairobi, Kenya. And I called him and said, "Hey, I'm ready to run something. I think sourcing is going to be like one of my biggest challenges. Will you help me with that?" And right around that time, one, he said yes. It was, I think Scaleco was probably forming in his mind. He could say that a little bit more, but he was actually with his former fund, but introduced me to the team there. We walked through some of my background, and I started talking about what I thought I'd be interested in running, which turned out to not be anything that we actually ended up buying, which is kind of the irony of it. But it also, really turned out to be something that I think, arguably everything I've done in my life has prepared me to run this business. And so hopefully that answers your question, but wanted to give kind of full context.
Yeah, and it actually kind of leads me into the next one, which is for both of you in terms of, how did you go about developing that investment thesis that got you to PSP, especially since you said, it might not have been what you were thinking about to begin with. So how did you both approach this, and how did you arrive at PSP?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say that the thesis, relatively speaking, I was more interested in. So the Exit Institute, I believe it was right around 2018 or so. We're anticipating that 4.5 million businesses were going to switch hands this decade, right? At a valuation of about $1.5 trillion. And so that was really on the lower middle market, to middle market, but we all probably know that ranges significantly. But Brendan and I had become friends, and so I had become really, really intrigued with kind of the lower end of the middle market, which I know had been a place that he had thrived. And so for me, it was, how can I potentially find a lifestyle business, with individuals that are potentially looking to retire, or just tired of kind of the day-to-day aspects, and then move forward with that, whether it's being able to add sales and marketing to that, connect it with, or combine it with 21st century technology. But the fact that there were 4.5 million businesses that were going to switch hands, my thesis was, hell, I could run one of those, if not multiple. So I think it was pretty basic for me. And I think that, once again, the deal flow aspect, as Brendan started sending me, more, my background has been, largely human capital focused. And so I worked in consulting for the Gallup organization, most recently an organization called Press Ganey Associates, large healthcare consultancy. Also been the head of HR for a couple, a startup in a hospital and some other stuff. And so, we looked at a couple different, deals over the years. But it was September 4th of last year. I got basically the shortest email I'd ever gotten from Brendan, ever. And he just said, "Hey, here's this sim. I have some thoughts. Let me know if you have some." And it happened to be this, PSP. And as I read it once, twice, 5 times, it was just very, very clear that this was the one. And I literally shot him a note back and said, "Hey, I think I can grow the hell out of this business. What are we going to do?" And so we move forward from there.
What's your side of the story?
Yeah, you guys think how wonderful, again, you think back 25 years or so, and when the people in Chicago were, kind of throwing me opportunities, and you think how wonderful the model is. I mean, you got a person that's talent, that I've known for a while, that's extremely talented, that I know that can drive revenue, and you're showing him opportunities, showing him or her opportunities. And what's really cool about it is, Donnie was senior level executive at a wonderful company, and you say to those person, do you think, that you can take this company and grow it? Are you willing to leave this wonderful job and go, enter the world of entrepreneurship? And so, we get wonderful leverage and energy from people like Donnie who, research the crap out of this, the opportunity, and they think, and they know they can grow it. And so I think what's so much fun is, it's kind of like playing on an old college or high school team again, when you get, somebody like Donnie that's going to lead the team to this place. And that's really what's, when you, so you throw, kind of stuff to Donnie, and eventually, he says, I really want to run with this. I think I can do it. And then you build a game plan, and it really is, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to work on the opportunity. It's a lot of fun to work with people with with the energy like Donnie has. And quite frankly, we're learning a lot from them too. And we can probably another topic for another day. But,
yeah. Well, and to be fair, Vanetta, as well, because I'm sure there's some really accomplished professionals and all that kind of stuff. If I came, I guess, from a little bit more of a private equity background, then maybe I would dive into the thesis and the numbers and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted, for me, the exposure to the fact that you could actually buy an existing business and just improve on it, was huge, right? And so when you talk about, a lot of folks that I knew were trying to get into tech, as an example, right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody wanted to, create this idea that's going to be disruptive to XYZ. I have plenty of friends who are doing it, and some of which are doing it really well, and others are, doing it, right? So I guess if you're just doing it, that's half the battle. But for me, what really made it attractive is that the more I learned about entrepreneurship through acquisition, it really allowed for me to kind of eliminate any questions or fears or hesitation that I had, to doing it. Right. A bunch of working professionals that I know, especially those that have probably, climbed a corporate ladder at some point, for those of us who were blessed to get to the top, a lot of those people have probably gotten to the top and only to realize that that ladder was up against the wrong wall the whole time.
Right.
Right. And you've heard me say that, but what entrepreneurship through acquisition gave me the opportunity was to move this ladder onto the wall of entrepreneurship with a cash flowing business, right? My business is 75 years old, right? It was founded in 1946 and has never had sales and marketing in 75 years.
Wow.
Right. So imagine a cash flowing business, profit margins north of 50%, with two co-owners who of course are paying themselves salaries and stuff. They have four full-time employees and 3 part-time employees, right? And once again, a 75-year-old business. So I think that, for a lot of folks, they're thinking through, all these brand new ideas and ways that they can disrupt, an industry. And for even those on the line or those who listen to this from a recording perspective, I would encourage you that after you listen to this, please be clear. And I'm willing to bet my future earnings on this, and frankly, double down on this. All of the innovation ideas and ways to disrupt an industry that you have, yes, you could come up with those, bootstrap that. Eventually, you get your friends and family, your series A, B, C, D through Z, right? But I also would encourage you that there are existing businesses today in those industries that have years of experience / branding that need the same amount of innovation, but are giving you a foundation of a cash flowing business that you can then reinvest and to still, manifest your idea to disrupt that industry, and then move, frankly, in kind of the private, capital markets, as opposed to necessarily, being on the venture side of things. And so for me, that was really, really attractive, and became even more attractive as I got exposed, at Prescaney Associates to the process of what it was like to actually switch capital partners. So we sold that business back in 2019 for 4.25 billion. And so to literally be a part of the executive team throughout that entire process, was just it was such an eye-opening process for me, an education to the point where now I'm just like, how can I share this with anybody who's willing to listen for 2 seconds? Because if you're already thinking about entrepreneurship, then why not do it with an existing business that has already, kind of survived past, the traditional time of starting a brand new business.
Right.
And once again, utilize that cash flow to take your strategy and continue growing it.
And I think sort of related to that, Brendan, what's the value in this sort of ETA strategy, getting folks like Donnie into an established company? I imagine PSP is probably roughly Donnie's grandfather's age, for example. So what is the value of a GP, using this model? And because it's not standard in private equity. So what's been the benefit that you've gotten out of it?
Look, we, obviously it's been something that changed my life very early on. And honestly, we've been doing this for, as you know, Vanetta, from digging in the numbers with us, we've been doing this for 25 plus years. And I think what's really neat about it is we continue, we can find over and over again, wonderful platforms that can grow, wonderful, people like, I'll say Donnie today, less wonderful people than like 25 years ago, like me. But, you really, when you combine those two things, it does generate fantastic returns. I mean, our returns are in the high 20s, low 30s. And I think what we're most proud of is that, our investors are getting a real fair compensation, or, kind of wonderful top tier returns. But it really is about generating life-changing wealth for the entrepreneur and their team, and quite frankly, and hopefully teaching them how, kind of how to do this, the processes that we're doing, them teaching us and us teaching them to, whatever degree. But it really is about, making sure that continues and that snowballs. And, because I'm just a firm believer there's just a huge imbalance between these wonderful, small, profitable businesses that most people don't want. And, because, and we can get into the dynamics of smaller companies versus larger companies, and why, fundamentally they trade at a much lower number. But I believe when you combine those with people like Donnie and you execute the plan, it is transformational wealth. I mean, it really does. It changed my life many years ago, and that's I think really what what our goal is here. And I forget your question, but I feel like I at least got something off my chest.
No, you definitely answered it in terms of the benefit. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's, taking that idea of innovation, which I think now is so stuck closely with venture capital, and saying, no, innovation comes in fresh ideas and fresh thinking. And when you put that into established companies that have been around for decades, everyone can make a boatload of money. And so to that end, and I have my last question, which I think might be on the minds of a lot of people in the room, is, how do you find each other? Donnie, I know you guys had, your situation's a little unique in the sense that, you have known each other for a long time, but, how do people develop networks? Donnie, how do you find Brendan's? Brendan, how do you find Donnie's?
I mean, I'm happy to start. I'd say Brendan and I are relationship people, right? And so have both, kind of developed and continue to hone in on the skill of relationship building. But one thing I'll share with everyone, which is probably something you already know, but I think that we're in just such an ideal time to build relationships with literally anyone that you want to, right? And so I'd encourage everyone who listens to this and everyone who's on now, if it's a desire of yours, then, you have 3 people that you can reach out to directly, because I'm volunteering Vanetta and Brendan, as well as myself. And so that's a start, right? But on top of that, there was no guarantee that I was going to work directly with Brendan. I was starting to build relationships with other folks in similar spaces. And so I think a great exercise that I encourage folks to do is pick 15 to 25 people, who either are, running businesses that, and maybe, are doing entrepreneurship through acquisition. Also folks who, claim to invest in the middle market, right? And reach out. And one of the things, the first best time to reach out to these folks would have been last year, because literally for the first time, probably in the past 10, they would not be able to give you the excuse that they had somewhere to go and, all that kind of stuff, because exactly where they were. They were at home, right? But the second best time is now. And so, there are still plenty of folks who we know that, work models and stuff have changed. And so we kind of have, this hybrid model. There are way more people who are at home at this point. And we have things like LinkedIn as a great example. Also think that, there's some associations and others, but at least for me, it was reaching out. And, transparently, the other thing that I was willing to do is just talk about my desire, right? It wasn't anything I was trying to sneak around, and try to figure out myself. I just started literally talking about it. And when I shared that with Brendan back in, the summer of 2017, and I actually asked, like, hey, deal flow, I think is going to be my biggest challenge. Will you help me with that? Brendan wasn't the only person that I asked about that. But he was one of the only people who followed up. And began sending me deals and asking my opinion on it. So that's where I'll start.
Don, I think you said it perfectly. I chuckle when you're saying that. I mean, I met Vanetta. I was doing research online and just reached out to her. I mean, we had worked together for, I don't know, Vanetta, 8, 9, 10 months before we even actually met in person. We spent a lot of time on Zoom. What I would also say, and with Vanetta's help and Donnie's help and a lot of other people, we realized that, fortunately or unfortunately, most of the deals have the most important thing in every deal is the people and the person or the people with the vision. Just end the story. And we realized that we've probably been limited with kind of my network or our or the Skillco network, and I think we're trying to think through other ways to make sure we can identify and find people that whether they want to be part of a Skillco company or part of their own company. There's an abundance of these companies out there, and so we need to do a better job. As you know, Vanetta, we've been trying to work on it and kind of getting our name out there and kind of being more welcoming to people.
And I appreciate the effort, because it's effort that I think has paid off in terms of the pipeline of folks that you guys have interested in running companies. And you have really great examples, especially someone like Donnie on the team, who I think is going to, at least I hope, especially in a forum like this, make it easy for people to see, that, like Brenda was saying, there's possibility. And if you didn't know that there was possibility before, you now do. And if nothing else, I hope it sort of galvanizes, everyone's desire to expand their network in ways that they might not have thought about before. And I think to that end, I want to open up for questions. Of course, we can continue talking, and these two, I have to say, I'm very impressed by how measured you've both been. Like, the best conversationalists I have ever met. So when I say they have been measured in their responses, this is really the kind of thing that we could talk about for hours. So I'm very, very proud of them
Donnie's the leader. Without him, we'd be in trouble. So,
but yes, I'd love to open it up to questions. Just feel free to unmute yourself and let her rip.
Any suggestions, recommendations on finding early stage venture capital, and any potential suggestions on deal structure in order to maximize my efficiency of dilution, since I'm not a big proponent of selling a piece of the soul with every round. I only want to do it once, to be honest.
Don, you want it?
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah, man. So, I think that while not knowing what your business idea is or anything else, I think that, depending on the industry that you're looking at, I'll restate one of the things I said earlier, which is I think there has to be, and literally, I'm happy to hop on like a 30-minute conversation, and I'd almost guarantee that we could find an existing business that, once again, could kind of cash flow, to the point of being able to drive your innovation, through an existing business. And so, there's a lot of different resources for that. I've found that, some of your traditional folks like service individuals, attorneys, accountants, those types of folks, end up knowing a lot of entrepreneurs that are looking to retire, that have great businesses, et cetera. And then, of course, the, kind of, normal folks. I've found that I've had a ton of conversations at this point and really increased my network of individuals that have private capital. And it's amazing to me, but believe this, there is no shortage of capital and there is no shortage of opportunities. The
Yeah.
biggest shortage for anybody that I've talked to who has hundreds of millions of dollars of dry powder right now are finding quality people to invest that capital with, period. Every single person that I talk to, it's not about the fact that there's no money out there. It's the fact that they don't know the people that they have confidence in to invest that money in. And that's more true now than it's ever been. So I hope that answered some of your question. From a deal structure perspective, I think that's probably a longer conversation, but
I will say that I have proudly researched everyone on this call on LinkedIn that has a face, and some of the names are, there's 3,000 of them. So please, Ms. Young, Donnie, Brendan, please accept my request, and a few other people that have your pictures up. That way, I would love to connect with you all and follow back up after this.
Yeah, happy to do so, man.
And Sean, one of the things, again, this is exactly what Donnie said. He says it much more articulately than I do. But what I don't know the venture world and that side of stuff. But what we consistently say to people, we've had some wonderful success stories where people come to us with software or some kind of something that they really want to start from scratch. And I'll put it in Brendan terms. We just say, is there something you can buy that gets you there a whole lot faster and gets cash flow, that gets cash flow right out of the gate? You've already got your AR, your AP, you've got, whether you need certifications or there's some piece of software that, whatever. And that's just, is there something around? And often you can go find it and buy it using, bank financing or cash flow or gets people like us more excited about stuff. So that's not, I realize the standard model, it's just ours. So.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I find that really, really fascinating. So it's not that I don't love venture. I just think that that's taking that, like I said before, that sense of innovation and applying it to what's existing, I think is super, super interesting. But I see we have a couple more people who have come on camera, so I'm assuming that you have questions. So who would like to jump in with a question?
If I may, I could ask a question.
Sure.
I've been a real estate executive for a while as an acquisitions manager in affordable housing. And as I transition out, I've been very particular about where I'm transitioning it out to, because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Mm-hmm. And one of the things about real estate is it's definitely capital intensive. So thinking about how to take in and kind of structure partnerships is something that's kind of intuitive in real estate, because you often kind of structure these deals. But as you mentioned, buying a business and structuring those deals look different to me in some way. But can you walk us through, or kind of like a fundamental structure? Maybe something that's, I don't want to say simple, but something that's kind of that's repetitive, or that that has worked. that you can approach somebody with a relationship to start with. Because here's what I'm saying. If I'm going to talk to somebody in private equity and I don't know what's usual versus unusual, then I'm kind of liable to, one, be unconfident about what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, and then two, it's already going to start the relationship at a deficit because I haven't gotten enough homework yet.
Yeah, I think I understand that. Brendan, Donnie?
You want it? You want me?
Yes. Yeah. So I'll the two quick things for me. Buy Then Build by Walker Dybel is a great book that I think everyone, and we can either put it in the chat or something else, but Buy Then Build I think is a great, very practical resource. And one of the things that he describes it as a little bit more is he talks through SBA financing, which I really compare SBA financing, and I know it's not this simple. And Brendan will, I'll shut up so Brendan can talk about deal structure a little more. But I've really compared SBA financing to effectively buying a home on an FHA loan, right? So you can buy a business for like 10 to 20% down, right? In which the SBA or institution that has that SBA financing is financing another 70%, say, of that deal. And then the other folks that you're buying the business from, maybe you're putting up like another 10, right? And so I'm throwing that out there as something very basic, Dwayne. That funny enough, a bunch of my friends who work in either commercial or residential real estate have found that example, just to be something that they can directly relate to and grasp, because it's actually very similar to buying a home. And I have not personally been through the SBA process, but very similar, kind of aspects as far as cash down. You can get that from other investors or otherwise, right? You're coming with the check, so technically it's you. And so that part is something that I think you'll find actually very similar. The other unique way is like having those individuals roll over cash and seller financing, and how we did it, which was I think Brendan would say the pass the hat method, or raising dollars to buy. We went out and raised once again in the middle of a pandemic. So and did it in record time, which is not normal. Speaking of what's normal, that is not normal. So, BA.
Yeah, no, and I Donnie, again, I think you do a great job kind of explaining that stuff. Dwayne, honestly, I look at this and I say, first, is it something that I'm excited about? And so, like in the deal that we threw to Donnie, I'm like, you know what, it meets a lot of the screens, and I thought that the valuation was fair. And so, if I get excited about it and Donnie gets excited about it, I literally just kind of sit down and say, okay, we know the purchase price, and we know how much money we've got, we know how much seller financing we've got, and we back into a number, and then that we need to either raise or put in, and I know it, and again, I know we all know this stuff, but it really starts with kind of getting excited about it and kind of feeling it's a fair deal. You've got a growth plan. And I'm happy to, like as Donnie mentioned, go offline and kind of talk about it. We're happy to share our models. We're happy to share, we'll share some of the stuff on Donnie's deal. But but it really does come down to to those things. And usually, if you're excited about it, you can tell the story. And so you've got a target number that you need to raise. That's really been my strategy all along. And it's so that's I'll stop there because I can go into a lot of different rabbit holes.
And I am going to invite, sorry, Dwayne, I'm going to invite one more question because we need to do, at this point, speed networking, but I want to hear Tracy's question since she's on video.
Hi, trying to formulate a single question. Thank you all so much. I'm really interested in entrepreneurship through acquisition as a means of increasing Black business ownership, which is directly, one of the contributing factors to building generational wealth. And so I'm really excited that I was able to come to this session live. And I'm trying to think of the question that I want to ask you all. And maybe it's just about the past year and, how you found each other a little bit more, but, kind of what are the types of criteria? How are there others out there who, look like Donnie and Brendan, who are willing to go down this road? Like how, what does the underwriting criteria, like, I don't know. I just have so many questions because this sounds like, an area where the gap that you mentioned, there's money out there, and then it's not reaching folks who could potentially do it. And so maybe that's a more general question, as you think about Black and even BIPOC entrepreneurs and firms like yours. I don't know if this was a stated purpose of yours, Brendan, or, kind of what you guys are seeing in the field from both of your perspectives.
Donnie, you're the leader.
Yeah, so Brendan and I are kindred spirits in the way we share values and stuff like that. And so I don't think we have a problem being transparent. He and I were actually having a number of conversations throughout last year, and once again, I've been in touch for 15 years or so, right? But Tracy, to your point, back, I guess it was last June or so, there was a lot of crazy things going on here in the US, right? And a lot of tension, for some things. And one of the things I can share is that I got a text message from a buddy of mine. He happens to be on this call, and said, "Hey, got an idea I want to talk to you about. What's your thoughts?" Right. And so we hopped on, and it was just me and him. And one of the things he said is he said, "Hey, I'm having a little bit of trouble getting in touch with people that basically are outside of my social circle." Right. And so that was an acknowledgement of his, to which, and he's chuckling because, my response, as you all are probably getting some of our personality and stuff, was like, "Brendan, like, I don't know what the hell that means. Like, are you looking for Scaleco to be more diverse? Because if that's the case, like, we could find more women, right? We could find, is it, you're, once again, BIPOC, right? Which is, I think, a very general thing, or like, are you looking for Black people?" Right? And it wasn't like a specific, like, "Hey, we're looking for Black people," but he did specifically, like, say that. And so for me, right, and Tracy, I think you'll appreciate this. I've been on my Issa Rae for, a little while. And so, just this whole, like, I'm here for everybody that's Black thing, I think is, is great. And frankly, when you talk about generational wealth, which is another conversation that Brendan and I've had for years now, I have said, once again, nothing against venture at all, but when I think about real generational wealth, I think that a lot of people go down the venture route because there's this belief that, if we throw enough stuff against the wall, right, eventually we'll hit, and arguably everything's a unicorn now, right? But what I can tell you is that if anyone's talking about closing the wealth gap and they're not talking about ownership, then I tune out very quickly. And as I mentioned, earlier, with 4.5 million businesses switching hands, what I can tell you is that a decent, shout out, Dwayne, like that. What I can tell you is that there's a number of these businesses, right, who are cash flowing anywhere from $500,000 to $2.5 million a year, right? If you can show me a real estate project that's going to do that for you, on an annual basis, that you can, own, that you can run on a daily basis, and that's really considered a small business, right? And once again, these are businesses where you're paying yourself a salary. We're not talking about bootstrapping or anything else. This is on top of your salary. This is on top of paying other people. And so when you talk about generational wealth, imagine running a business that's cash flowing $500,000 to $2.5 million a year for 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
Right. I would say that that's going to be significantly impactful to your family, and other people. That's not even talking about That's just a lifestyle business, right? That's not talking about some of the other things that Brendan and I get excited about when you talk about growth, when you talk about exiting, transparently, to continue our transparent conversation today. The gentleman that, when I took over as president in February, I got the executive bonuses for this lifestyle business. And between 1998 and 2018, the co-owners of the business that we bought took home $33 million.
Nice. I take that.
Right? I don't know. I don't know anyone's bank account on this call, and I don't know your family history, but $33 million would be transformational for my family, and my wife's family. So, and I mean that from a whole perspective, right? Both sides of our family. And so, one of the reasons I enjoy, not only my partnership and friendship with Brendan, and what we've been able to do at ScaleCo, because even the operating partner piece at ScaleCo was literally because my desire is to invest, in folks eventually, and so I just wanted more exposure to the investment side, as much as I'm also president and operating, PSP. It was for that very reason, and so when I think about, that's my 2-year-old, who's probably avoiding nap time right now. But we'll see if she makes an appearance at some point. But it's because I think about her. It's because I think about others. And Tracy, Vanetta's heard me say this before, and I promise I'll pass to Brendan right after this. But I think that there are. Within the Black community specifically, we already live in an entertainment-based society overall, right? And a lot of times, once again, when we're thinking about transactions, I mean, you could say that Jay-Z had the best Q1 of anyone in history, damn near, right? Sold damn near $1 billion worth of ownership, in a number of stakes. And so within our community, we a lot of times see those individuals, but everybody's not going to be Jay-Z, right? Everybody's not going to be Rihanna. Everybody's not going to be, these Kanye, right? But I like sharing my story because of the fact that I believe that everyone on here can be Donnie Bedney, right? There are 4.5 million cash flowing businesses that have been in existence for a long time that are looking to switch hands this decade. And each person on here and that's listening to a recording can find the right one for them to run. And we'd love for you to do it with ScaleCo if that works. And I'll joke and say nobody's doing this except us. But there are some other people I'm sure that you could find a partner with. But it is something that, once again, from a values perspective, Brendan and I have shared. We have a lot of similar values around family and wealth building and the impact that, something that may not catch national news, right, but literally would be impactful to at least my family, and by the head shakes, on here, probably a number of families. And so I find it to be my responsibility just to share that it's possible, and to be an open book about educating folks about the fact that, once again, it's even an opportunity. So that's the longest I think I've had a response today, V. So I'm gonna shut up for a little bit and let Brendan talk a little bit too. I hope that answers your question, Tracy.
Actually, Vanetta, it'd be very interesting to have you chime in here too. But it's interesting. I think back. I mentioned earlier, I got lucky in the very, very beginning. I fell into a network of people that were just amazingly outward mindset and inclusive, and I just thought that's the way the world worked. And I have come to now realize it's probably not the way the world works. And I realized, I think it was, sometimes you just, you get in business and you're on a grind, and then one time you wake up and you say, I really got to stop, reflect and decide where we want to take the company. And Donnie mentioned we had done a shift from kind of a fund to this, kind of using these pretty, kind of a smaller network of investors. And I realized I had a network problem, that I was only pulling from my network. And I don't know, Vinette, I'll kind of take it from here. I'll maybe throw it to you, and you maybe a conversation you and I had, almost 2 years ago now, when I kind of reached out to you.
Yeah, and I tell people that on my website very prominently it says that advising for women and people of color, and there's a picture of a woman and there's a picture of a Black man. And so when Brendan reached out to me, I was like, did he not see the pictures on the
He's not very smart. He can't read. So anyways, other than that, it's
and yet what attracted me was the core of the conversation that we've had today. I found that Brendan had an understanding of there is, at the end of the day, that taking innovation from the idea of just disrupting industries and saying, how do I give people who have not gotten the chance and make a boatload of money doing it? That was music to my ears, and it was kind of frankly sort of preaching to the choir. And so I said, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that this vision comes to fruition. How can we use this, as Brendan being an ally, how do we use an ally and structure allyship? And so over the course of, well over, oh my gosh, yes, it has been almost 2 years of a consulting engagement in which we've been trying to figure out, how do we structure allyship? What does this look like in the context of private equity? And it has been really fascinating just seeing it come to fruition. And I think seeing Donnie go into PSP at the beginning of this year for me was was a linchpin, I think, in my work with Brendan, of saying that this has been, we were doing a lot of the planning and then it happened. And then to me, that was just very, very exciting. And I am super stoked to see it happen again and making this a repeatable process. Because I think we all on this call have learned that ownership goes so far beyond, or should I say, wealth building goes beyond owning a house. And I think that is one thing that in the Black community, we put a lot of emphasis on home ownership. And we haven't put a lot of emphasis on, either business ownership or building a business and then selling that, because ultimately that's how you get wealth out of a house anyway, is by selling it. But no, it has been such a joy working with Brendan and Donnie, getting to know them over the past almost 2 years. And just having them on this call. And I'm now realizing this might be the one Emerging Manager Roundtable in which we don't actually get to the networking, because it is 1:23. And I'm like, if I put you in breakout rooms now, you will each have 10 seconds to say your name and not very much else about yourself. So I'm actually going to open up the floor again to any additional questions or comments.
This is Josh Vitale. I just wanted to ask Donnie and Brendan if they could just tell the group a little bit about some of their challenges around, and/or some of the challenges around sourcing, around getting in front of some of the businesses. What are some of the key performing indicators that you're looking for? Do you want companies with specific margins? Are you looking for different types of companies in specific industries or any industry? Where have you guys seen a lot of success? Where have you guys seen that if you get a deal in this industry at this price, that it's a win, right? Dwayne mentioned that he's in real estate. So in real estate, I know for a fact that there's specific, properties that sell in a specific area at a specific price that they're like, oh, this is a win. We got to buy that. We got pay over asking price. How does that work for you guys as well?
I am especially intrigued by this because Scaleco operates in what we call the micro middle market. So for those who aren't as familiar with private equity, the lower middle market generally in the industry refers to companies that have about $5 to $15 million in EBITDA. Those are actually very large companies. These are not the kinds of companies that we've been talking about in terms of the 4.5 million that Donnie has been referring to. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there, but take it away, gentlemen.
Brendan, I'll actually let you lead, man, because that's more of a.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Josh, I would say that just the number one issue, gating issue to every deal is having somebody with a vision to grow it and do something with it, as far as we're concerned. And so, we see, we've been around a while, we see lots of opportunities, but pairing them up with Donnie, Bedney, or somebody of his skill set is the hard part. And, you've got geography, you've got timing, you've got, and so forth. And so that's the first number, that's the hardest thing to do. The second thing is, a general vision for growth. I mean, we buy very small companies. I mean, often, as low as $500,000 of free cash flow. And really, to us, it's gotta have some vision to be over 5 million of free cash flow. And that can be through add-on acquisition, that can be through geographical expansion, that can be through organic growth, or whatever else Donnie can dream of. But why that's important is, and he does dream a lot, but that's good. Why that's important is it transforms the value. I mean, we down in the smaller companies, the companies don't have the same value that they do once you get them above 5 or 10 million of free cash flow. So one is it drives the value. Two is it kind of guarantees that transformational generational wealth, kind of start. And those are the two driving factors, and that can happen in a lot of different industries. We tend to really like business services, like Donnie's business. We like training, certification. We like, kind of the value added, higher margin value added distribution. Why? Because they tend to be asset light and they tend to be able to grow. That's not exclusively where we look, but just, again, those things that, and again, you can find some of these smaller companies with these wonderful margins that haven't, as Donnie said, hasn't had sales in 75 years. And so, Donnie.
Yeah, I mean, just building on that, Joshua. Don't know if you go by Josh. So I think
Josh is fine.
All right, cool. So yeah, man, I think thinking about free cash flow, is one of just the top things that you look at. At least for me, as we've been evaluating different stuff, it was, all of the other things that you would think about. I also like, looking at potential growth, right? And so as you talk about, regardless of industry, what have their sales, and marketing, efforts look like. A lot of these smaller businesses, once again, have never proactively gone out and sold anything. They've really just grown through referral, which actually speaks to the quality of some of the work that they've done, right? And so, if you have the ability to add that to them, then that's great. I also like to look at client base, and so retention of clients as an example, right? My business had basically a 95% retention of clients, over the years, and so that was really important to me as well. And then technology, right? I mean, we're living in the age of technology in the 21st century, so looking at some of those intangibles, were some additional pieces that I tended to look for as we were thinking about businesses.
But happy to go offline and chat about this stuff also. It is a detailed game, and often we start throwing around terms that we've been using for a long time, and I was doing that with one of our newer businesses, and afterwards one of the plant managers came up to me and said, "What's EBITDA?" And I'm like, and I've been using that for 5 hours. I'm like, So
definitely. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I am going to repeat that gratitude, especially since I know Brendan is at an offsite. Donnie had a family situation. Everything is fine now. I had a sick baby last night. So I am all grateful that we are all here in one piece. Got to spend this time together. And I am just so grateful to Brendan and Donnie for, even just taking the time to walk us through what this ETA model looks like. And for the folks on the call who are interested in entrepreneurship through acquisition, I hope this was both illuminating and encouraging. Some of the very practical ways in which this business is done, but then also, the thought that there is possibility. And for any other GPs on the call to see that, the operating partner model doesn't have to be the very traditional, taking folks who have been running a company for years and then placing them into these lower middle market companies, this can actually be something that's much broader, and takes advantage of that sense of innovation and using that in a different context. But it is 1:30 on the nose. And like I said, these two are some of the best conversationalists I know. I had a feeling we weren't going to get to networking, and I said, should I cut them off? And I was like, absolutely not, because I am one to allow people to be who they are. And because I know that these two being who they are is of great value to the world and to everyone on this call. So thank you all for joining, and happy holidays. We're going to go dark for January while I sort of get some things together, but we'll be back with the roundtable in February, and looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
thank you all
Thank
again.
you.
Happy holidays
right.
and Happy New Year.
Take
You
care.
too.